2015. This is the duly called meeting of the Texas Low-Level Radioactive Waste Disposal Compact Commission. The time is about 9:50, and we're going to call the meeting to order. With our most recent entry, we have a quorum and then some. We have Judge Dolgener, Commissioner Weber. With us, as always, is our counsel, Jim Krausen, and Karen Watkins from the Attorney General. We have Commissioner Saudick, Vice Chairman Salzman, Commissioner Morris, and Commissioner Bradford, and of course, Leeing, our Executive Director, and Audrey, who just stepped out. With that, do we have any other elected officials in the room today besides the judge? I didn't see any. Do we have any press with us today? As probably most of you got the note, we are not live streaming this meeting today, but we are recording it through some alternate means, so we are making our record of the meeting, and it will be made available on the website after the meeting. With that, we have completed the first three items on the agenda. We will move on to item 4, which is a public comment. As a little preview, later on in the agenda, we will be introducing some new guidelines for public comment. We won't talk about them now, but we will talk about them under the chairman's report. So today may be the last day that we do not use our guidelines. But with that, if there's anyone who would like to make a public comment, please step forward. All right, we will move on to item 5 then. Consideration and possible action on the publication for public comment of the proposed adoption of a new 31 Texas Administrative Code, Section 675.20, 21, 22, and 23, related to definitions, exportation, and importation of low-level radioactive waste. With this, I will turn it over to the chairman of our Rules Committee, Commissioner Morris.
Thank you. The Rules Committee, consisting of Commissioners Hurley, Salzman, Saudick, and Morris, have completed the draft of the proposed rules for 675.20, .21, .22, and 23. A copy of the proposed rules, Commissioners, are found in your notebooks. We actually sent those proposed working draft rules out before the last meeting that was postponed, so you guys have had a chance to look at that. The Rules Committee is and also you'll notice in the proposed rules, which I think begins in tab 12, that in the front of each of those rules are some redlined copies, and those are some recent recommendations for changes made by our counsel, Jim Krausen. So I'd like to ask Mr. Krausen to briefly comment on some of the changes. These are the first time that you guys will have seen those in today's notebooks. Mr. Krausen.
Thank you. We continued to work, given the opportunity that we had because of the failed meeting. We continued to work and had the opportunity to get some, let's just call it a guideline draft from the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, which is going to actually post our rules for us because we don't have that capability. And so using their draft, we made some conforming changes just primarily for editing and the way in which they must be done in order to be received by and printed and put in the publication by the Texas Register. So there are editing changes that are made. We also made sure that tried to make sure that the preamble comported with some recent changes that we actually made in the text of section 675.23. But none of the changes, members, were substantive. They were simply editorial and getting us ready to publish on a faster basis.
And I want to remind everyone, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Administrative Procedure Act process, but what we're doing today is not passing rules. We are simply voting to publish these rules in the Texas Register, which begins a comment period that the public then has the opportunity to comment on the rules for. We have done this informally already, and many of you were part of that process, but this is the more formal comment period that's required by state law before the rules can become effective. So we are not passing rules today. We are just voting on whether or not to publish the rules. And also, before I forget, I want to commend everyone that's been involved with the process to date. Chairman Morris obviously has done a huge amount of heavy lifting on this, as has Commissioner Sadek and Commissioner Salzman. Our legal counsel, both Karen Watkins and Jim Krausen, have done kind of a Herculean effort. The other thing I wanted to mention is that this is not the end of the rules process. There will be another rule that we have discussed in the past, but it's not ready for publication. So this is not all of the rules that we will be hopefully passing out and publishing in the near future, but this is the first set. And since it was done and we felt that there was no reason to wait any longer on these rules, .20 through .23, we wanted to go ahead and start the APA comment process.
And to add to Commissioner Hurley's comments, so today, we need to ask the commission to vote to proceed with the publication of these rules and these draft rules in the Texas Register. If that vote goes, is positive, and then it looks like they will go into the Texas Register either by May 24th or at the latest maybe May 1st, April 24th or May 1st, depending on the schedule for the Texas Register. And of course, at that time, they'll be available for viewing by everyone. We are also looking, that begins, when they're published, of course, in the Texas Register, that begins a 45-day comment period. So we're looking at a 45-day comment period. During that time, we wish to have a stakeholders meeting. Right now, it looks like the stakeholder meeting will be, we're shooting for May 29th. May 28th is the next scheduled commission meeting. So since we have commissioners that need to travel, it would be advantageous and convenient to have the stakeholder meeting the day after the scheduled commission meeting. So right now, that's what it looks like, date and actual time to be arranged. So we'll be looking at that. So stay tuned for that. We'll be confirming the time and the location for that. But it looks like May 29th, since all the Rules Committee would be present and able to attend that meeting. Again, as Commissioner Hurley pointed out, the Rules Committee will continue to work on another possible section concerning the importation of manifested non-federal low-level waste that's not exempted by rule, that would not actually be going into the compact waste facilities. That's a lot of negatives. That's kind of a sentence. Anyway, an update on the progress on this potential rule will be presented at a future commission meeting.
Thank you, Chairman Morris. With that, we will entertain a motion to approve the publication of the draft rules as set out by Commissioner Morris. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, before you vote, may I ask that the motion include the flexibility to make editorial changes as necessary to meet the Texas Register standards?
Judge Dolgener, will you amend your motion? Is your second still? So there's been a motion and a second, as stated. Is there any comment or discussion that we need to have about this? I'll first pose that to the commissioners, and if there's none, I'll also ask the public. Any public comment on this before we take it to a vote? Good morning.
Good morning, Robert Singleton, CODA. Just a quick question while I can still ask them. Is the public considered a stakeholder? Will we be able to participate in the stakeholder meetings?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And obviously, also, through the APA process, you'll be able to submit formal comment as well. Any other comment? All right, then I will call for a vote on the motion as amended and seconded. All in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. I believe the motion passes, and the publication can proceed. That then takes us to item 6 on the agenda, which is the consideration of and possible action on each of the following requests for amendments to agreements for import of low-level radioactive waste. The first one is 6A, which is EMC Thomas Gray and Associates. And with that, I will turn it over to Vice Chairman Salzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Technical Committee received and reviewed an amendment request from Thomas Gray and Associates That number is 1-0063-03. And in this case, Thomas Gray has requested to add the state of Kentucky as a state of origination of waste. That's the only requested change for this particular amendment request. And the technical committee recommends approval of this amendment request. And I should also add that Kentucky is part of the Central Midwest Compact and does not require an export permit for that waste.
I will note also that this kind of amendment request is something that under the new rules would not require an actual request before the entire commission, but would in fact be something that the executive director, chairman, and/or their designees could approve without a full commission vote. So just as a preview of what the new rules may impact, this would be one of them.
I'd be happy to answer any questions from the commissioners if they have any.
Any questions of the vice chairman? Seeing none, I guess we can move on to a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the amendment request from Thomas Gray to add the state of Kentucky to the list of authorized states of origin of the waste.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion of the import amendment application from EMC Thomas Gray?
I would note that's 1-0063-03.
Thank you for that. Any other discussions? Any comment from the public? Hearing none, I will call for a vote on item 6A, the import amendment application from Thomas Gray. All in favor indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion passes. We'll move on to item 6B, the import amendment application for Entergy. Vice Chairman Salzman.
The technical committee has received and reviewed an import amendment request from Entergy. That's 1-0030-01, which was dated February 18, 2015. And in this case, it's for the James A. Fitzpatrick Nuclear Power Plant. And they have requested an increase, and I want to make sure I get this right. Get to that page, pardon me. They've requested an increase in the cubic footage from 112.2 cubic feet to 350 cubic feet, an increase in the total radioactivity from 25,200 curies to 50,000 curies, the addition of Class A and Class B to the waste classification, and the waste description would be revised to include non-fuel reactor components and process filters, and they wish to change the duration of their agreement from September 1, 2015 through August 31, 2016. In this case, that would comport with our operational year. I would also note that in a letter of correspondence that Entergy sent to the commission, they've requested a clarification, and that is, in their original application, they requested I-129, and rather than the usual request for a certain number of, a certain amount of activity, their request was for 0.8 nanocuries per cubic centimeter. So rather than requesting a specific limit for I-129, they requested a concentration limit. And so their request is to clarify that, to actually put in an activity limit of 10,000 nanocuries. And I actually went through the math, and this is, it's conservative in that the 0.8 nanocuries per cubic centimeter works out to more than the 10,000. So they're not, this clarification isn't some opportunity for them to increase the amount of radioactivity they're asking for. It's really reducing the amount, but it's to clarify. When the original application came through, I assumed they just made a mistake in the units, and so I didn't catch it either on the original application. The changes to, that they've requested have been authorized in a letter from TCEQ to the compact facility operator, and that letter was dated April 7, 2015. The technical committee recommends approval of this amendment request and clarification, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about it.
Any commissioner have a question for Vice Chairman Salzman on this? And to follow up on my previous comment, this would be the type of amendment that would not fall under the new rules authorization for the executive director or chairman or their designee to approve amendments. This would still come before the entire commission.
John, in terms of the way the business works, is there a sort of standard amount that you'd expect to see in these agreements from reactors of the same type?
If the amendment, or if the application were for just perhaps DAW and filters and things like that, it's probably, you could probably calculate a range or sort of a standard range, from a couple of hundred cubic feet to maybe 1,000 cubic feet or 2,000 cubic feet. I think where the real outliers come in is when they're getting rid of waste that perhaps they've had in storage for a long period of time. Or I suspect in this case, Entergy is adding non-fuel reactor components. And so the volume doesn't necessarily go up that much, but the radioactivity will go up dramatically, because that's where really all the majority of the activity is in the non-fuel reactor components. So I suspect in this case, that's why the increase was, the radioactivity increase was almost double. It's because they're adding those non-fuel components, which have a lot of cobalt-60 in them and some cesium and things like that, the metal itself. And so there's a great deal of activation. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, sort of. I'm just wondering if at the end of the day, is there a big difference between the total amount that might come to Texas from, say, Pilgrim factory?
And pardon, I can't, I probably knew this at one point, but I can't recall whether, which of those two is a BWR and which is a PWR. That's where you're going to see the,
I believe they're both BWR.
if they're both BWRs, then it's likely that the volume of waste that they would generate from an operational perspective, it's going to be pretty similar, assuming they're about the same size plant and those kinds of things.
Unless they've had some kind of a screw-up back along.
Exactly. If they have to ship out steam generators or something like that, then obviously it would be a big increase. Where it's harder to predict is when they start shipping things like non-fuel reactor components, not so much in the volume, because typically the volume's not that great for those. It's the curies can go up dramatically when they start shipping those kinds of items. And part of the variation is going to be how long have those components been sitting in their spent fuel pool decaying before they ship them. Part of that, at least in the past, was related to when could they get a cask to ship those materials. There were so few casks available that you had to maybe get out 2 or 3 years on the schedule to get a cask. Now apparently there's more casks available, so the shipping frequency will probably increase for those kinds of items.
Thanks.
Sure.
Any other questions for the Vice Chairman? If not, we will entertain a motion.
And I would note before I make my motion that, as I indicated, this request is actually for next year, if you will. So this will go into the spreadsheet that I will build for the fourth operational year, which does not exist yet. But this will be the first, in essence, new application for the fourth year, if you will. So I make a motion that we approve the amendment request from Entergy Fitzpatrick. That's 1-0030-01 to increase the cubic footage to 350 cubic feet, increase the radioactivity to 50,000 curies, add Class A and Class B to the waste classification, add non-fuel reactor components and process filters to the waste description, and change the duration of the agreement to be from September 1, 2015 through August 31, 2016, and to clarify that the I-129 activity limit is 10,000 nanocuries.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion among the commissioners?
I have a question. Are we using, have we kind of moved to the point where we now take these agreements and make new, several amendments to them and use the first agreement as kind of the basic agreement and then just change the numbers or by amendment or are we, at what point does it tip over to a new agreement? I guess it's.
So I'll try to answer that question. If it was just an administrative perspective, I think they do just sort of do a strike through and change the numbers. I think we've been pretty flexible in allowing them to amend an agreement. What we typically haven't done is allow them to add more years, if you will. In this case, I guess we are, but it's because they've never started. They've never shipped anything, and on the original, I went back and looked at the original application. They requested disposal capacity in the future to help them with how they were operating the plant and whether they were going to build on-site storage and things like that. So in this case, I guess I defer to the applicant that it appears to be a legitimate request, and they're asking to move their allocation to a future year. They haven't shipped any yet, and they didn't have any intention of shipping yet. So we've probably been a little less flexible when somebody just says, oh, well, I just want to add another 2 or 3 years to my agreement. We really haven't done that. And actually, in most of the applications that we've received recently, we've made the applicant comport to our operational year. So I don't know if I exactly answered your question.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I just wonder, at this point, there are a lot of agreements out there, and if, I guess my question had to do with at what point to, of course, the new rules might influence that, I suppose. I don't know.
The other thing that we do is at the end of the operational year, which obviously is our fiscal year as well, we'll go through and determine which applications or which import agreements have expired. In fact, terminate those, and they get removed from the spreadsheet, and so.
Thank you.
Any further discussion or questions? Any public comment on item 6B, the application for an amendment from Entergy? Seeing none, then we will call for a vote. All in favor of the application for the amendment to the import agreement of Entergy James A. Fitzpatrick, NPP, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion passes. We will move on to item 6C, which is the import application for an import agreement amendment from Philotechnics. Vice Chairman Salzman.
The technical committee has received and reviewed an amendment request from Philotechnics. That is 1-0069-02. Pardon me. And I want to make sure I get the numbers correct. And in this case, Philotechnics has requested an increase in their I-129 activity from 500,000 nanocuries to 5 times 10 to the 8th nanocuries. They also have requested to add the states of Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, and Connecticut. These are the only changes requested. The states they've requested to add are actually from the Rocky Mountain Compact and the Atlantic Compact. The Atlantic Compact has no export authorization requirement. However, the Rocky Mountain Compact does. The applicant has not provided that export authorization, so for any addition of those states, we'd have to note that, and that the applicant would have to provide an actual copy of that export authorization prior to any shipments. And the technical committee recommends approval of this, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the Vice Chairman on the Phylotechnics application for amendment? Hearing none, we will entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the amendment request from Phylotechnics 1-0069-02 to increase the I-129 activity to 5 times 10 to the 8th nanocuries, and to the states of origination of the waste, add Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, and Connecticut, with the proviso that the applicant must provide us copy or copies of the export agreement for those states prior to any shipment, and that would be from the Rocky Mountain Compact.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any public comment on item 6C? Hearing none, we will call for a vote. All in favor of the motion on the floor related to item 6C, the application for an import agreement amendment from Phylotechnics, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion passes. We will now move on to item 6D, the application for an import agreement amendment from RAM Services.
The technical committee has received and reviewed an amendment request from RAM Services that was dated March 11, 2015, and that amendment request is 1-0077-02. And in this case, RAM Services has requested an increase in the total radioactivity from 64.221 curies to 64.3 curies, so a minor request to increase the curies. And those are the only, that is the only change that they've requested. The technical committee recommends approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Vice Chairman Salzman, what is the reference to deleting the sentence regarding the special form and normal form CS 137?
That's additional information that the applicant provided that, in my opinion, the commission needs to take no action on that.
Okay. Any other questions for Vice Chairman Salzman? Hearing none, we will entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the amendment request from RAM Services 1-0077-02 to increase the total radioactivity to 64.3 curies.
Any further discussions or questions for Vice Chairman Salzman? Any public comment on item 6D? Hearing.
Second the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. So we have a motion and now a second. Is there any further discussion? Any public comment? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote on item 6D, the application for an import agreement amendment from RAM Services. All in favor indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion passes. With that, we'll move on to item 7, and after item 7, we will take a break, but we'll go ahead and knock out item 7, if that's okay with you, Vice Chairman Salzman. This is the application for a proposed importation agreement from EMC Thomas Gray and Associates. Vice Chairman Salzman.
The technical committee has received and reviewed an application for an import agreement, pardon me, from Environmental Management and Controls. That agreement was signed February 27, 2015, received by the commission March 2nd, 2015, and that's 1-0087-00. And in this case, EMC is a broker who is a licensed waste processor and collector requesting authorization to dispose of non-party low-level waste in accordance with the Act. The compact facility operator has been authorized to dispose of the waste from TCEQ. That was in a letter dated April 7, 2015. And in this case, the applicant has requested to dispose of Class A, Class B, and Class C stable and unstable sealed sources stabilized in concrete, depleted uranium, and low-level radioactive waste. The applicant is requesting 1,175 cubic feet, 25 curies total radioactivity, 30 millicuries of C14, 1 millicurie of technetium-99, and 500,000 nanocuries of I-129, and 15 million microcuries of depleted uranium. I would note that the applicant has indicated that they was reported to them verbally on February 25th of 2015 that they had a probable violation with the State of Washington Department of Health regarding package dose rates for a load delivered to U.S. Ecology, Washington on February 23, 2015. So what that amounts to is a shipping violation. There are DOT limits for the radiation level associated with a package of waste when you ship it. And apparently when the load arrived at U.S. Ecology, the dose rate exceeded the limit. That, I won't make any further comment. They have no other unresolved issues with the commission. They have requested the state of origination of the waste to be California, Arizona, Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, and then an anomaly, they requested NB, which doesn't happen to be a state. I'm assuming that was, that's right,
NB,
NB.
New Brunswick? That's what it is in the Northeast.
It's either Nebraska or North Dakota. It could be NE or ND. Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, that's an unusual one also since Texas is part of the compact and we typically don't require an import agreement for Texas waste. Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi again. They actually requested Mississippi twice. Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, and Illinois, which are part of the Southwestern Compact, Northwest Compact, Central Compact, Texas Compact, Southeast Compact, and the Central Midwest Compact. Of those, the Southwestern Compact, the Northwest Compact, although not required by rule, and the Central Compact require export authorization. To date, the applicant has not provided export authorization documentation, nor have they provided generator agreements. The applicant has requested that the waste be totaled against a small quantity generator set aside. However, in the opinion of the technical committee, the commission or the technical committee disagrees that this request should be totaled against a small quantity generator set aside. Based on the requested volume and curies, I just don't feel like that's appropriate. And the applicant has requested that the import authorization be from now through August 31 of 2016. So this would be, their request would be to start the agreement now, and it would carry through the end of the fourth operational year, which, as a matter of course, I'm opposed to those types of durations when they extend over an operational year. The commission, or the technical committee with changes, does recommend approval of this agreement, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And John, could you remind us why you're opposed to straddling years like that? Is it a reporting issue?
It makes the accounting complicated because we have to, when the operational year is over, say this third operational year is over, we then have to go back, account for how much they shipped in the third operational year. We have to go, and then we would have to notify the applicant, okay, well, if you requested 1,000 cubic feet and you've already shipped 1,000, you only have 1,000 left. So it just becomes an opportunity for us or even the applicant to make a mistake with regard to shipping.
Also, do we know the potential violation in the state of Washington? Is it likely to lead to simply a fine, or could it lead to some other type of administrative action?
Typically, it could lead to a fine, and more likely, it would lead to a nonconformance. They might have some restrictions for being able to ship to that state, and they might very well make them take the shipment back, or there are other remedies. There are several remedies possible. It's unlikely to lead to a situation where they are not allowed to ship, but it likely leads to a situation where the inspectors at that site are going to watch their shipments more closely.
Any other questions for Vice Chairman Salzman?
Well, excuse me, I wonder whether, I mean, he doesn't seem to quite understand how we work. He wants to include Texas, and he wants to include some states without names, and he wants to, and whatnot. I'm just wondering whether that should be communicated.
I would not be opposed to tabling this application and allowing the applicant the opportunity to correct the issues within the application.
So moved.
There's a motion on the floor then.
I was asleep, didn't you?
There's a motion on the floor to table,
What judges have got their eyes closed?
there's a well-stated motion on the floor for item 7, the application for an import agreement of EMC Thomas Gray and Associates. As I understand the motion, it would be simply to table this application.
Yeah, to let them get their ducks in order.
I'll second.
Mr. Chairman, as a parliamentary matter, if we table this, then we have to have a motion to remove it from the table. So an appropriate consideration might be to simply not take action. Then you don't have to go through a parliamentary situation next time.
Judge, would like to amend your motion.
Yeah, I amend my motion to
The-
take
the-
it off the table.
The motion now is to simply not take action on item 7A. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor of not taking action on item 7A, which is the import application, application for an import agreement from EMC Thomas Gray and Associates, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion to take no action on item 7A passes. It is about 10:30. I think now's the time to let Vice Chairman Salzman have a break. During the break, we will put the guidelines for public comment up on the speaker's lectern, so if anyone would like a copy of them, I've handed out some, but if anyone else would like a copy, please feel free to come up and get one, and we will be discussing that after we get back. So if we can come back at about 10:45, I think we can then wrap things up before lunch. So we will be back at 10:45. Thank you.